Picture this: December 30th, 2019, Wuhan, China, a city of 11 million people in central China. It's a cold winter evening. Inside Wuhan Central Hospital, a 34-year-old ophthalmologist named Wenliang finishes his shift. He's exhausted but concerned. He's been hearing rumors, strange cases, patients coming in with severe pneumonia, symptoms similar to SARS, the deadly virus that killed nearly 800 people in 2003. Let checks his medical group chat. Other doctors are talking about it too. 7 patients, all with similar symptoms: fever, cough, difficulty breathing. Some are in critical condition, and all of them are connected to the Huanan Seafood Wholesale Market, a massive wet market in Wuhan where vendors sell live animals, fish and exotic wildlife. Wenliang is worried. This looks like a SARS-like coronavirus. If it's spreading, people need to know. They need to protect themselves. Hospitals need to prepare. At 5:43 p.m., Lick sends a message to his medical school alumni group on WeChat, a Chinese messaging app. He writes 7 confirmed cases of SARS, quarantined in the emergency department of our hospital. He attaches a patient's test report. He warns his colleagues to be careful, to wear protective equipment, to tell their families. Within hours his message spreads, screenshots circulate, people panic. SARS is back, in Wuhan. But Litis made a mistake. He didn't report it through official channels first. He spoke out publicly before the government gave permission. In China, that's a problem. 4 days later, on January 3, 2020, police summon Wenliang to the Public Security Bureau. They accuse him of spreading false rumors and disturbing social order. They force him to sign a confession, admitting his illegal behavior. They warn him, stop spreading rumors, or face consequences. Wenliang goes back to work. He's scared but defiant. He knows what he saw, he knows the virus is real, and he knows it's spreading. 2 weeks later, Wenliang starts feeling sick. Fever, cough, difficulty breathing. He tests positive for the virus he tried to warn people about. The virus that at this point the Chinese government is still downplaying. On February 7, 2020, Wenliang dies. He's 34 years old. A doctor, a husband, a father, and one of the first people to sound the alarm about a virus that would go on to kill millions. His death sparks outrage in China and around the world. He becomes a symbol, a whistleblower silenced by the government, a hero who tried to warn the world, a victim of the very virus he tried to stop. But Wenliang's death raises a bigger question, a question that more than 4 years later still haunts the world. Where did this virus come from? How did COVID-19 start? Was it natural, or was it a lab accident? This is the story of Patient Zero, the search for the origin of COVID-19, the mystery of the Wuhan outbreak, the lab leak theory, the Chinese government's cover-up, and why after millions of deaths and years of investigation, we still don't know the truth. Let me take you through what we know, what we don't know, and why the origin of COVID-19 remains one of the biggest unsolved mysteries in modern history. To understand the origin mystery, you need to understand what COVID-19 is. COVID-19 is caused by a coronavirus called SARS-CoV-2. Coronaviruses are a family of viruses that infect animals and humans. They're called coronaviruses because under a microscope they have crown-like spikes on their surface. Corona means crown in Latin. Most coronaviruses cause mild colds, but some are deadly. In 2003, SARS severe acute respiratory syndrome killed nearly 800 people. In 2012, MERS Middle East respiratory syndrome killed over 850 people. Both were caused by coronaviruses that jumped from animals to humans. SARS-CoV-2, the virus that causes COVID-19, is closely related to SARS. It's a respiratory virus that spreads through droplets when infected people cough, sneeze or talk. In most people it causes mild to moderate symptoms, fever, cough, fatigue. But in some, especially the elderly, and those with underlying health conditions, it causes severe pneumonia, organ failure, and death. By early 2020, SARS-CoV-2 was spreading rapidly. But where did it come from? That's the billion-dollar question. There are 2 main theories about the origin of COVID-19. The natural origin theory, also called the zoonotic spillover theory. This is the idea that the virus jumped naturally from animals to humans, probably through an intermediate host. Most scientists initially believed this was the most likely explanation. Here's how it would work. SARS-CoV-2 likely originated in bats. Bats carry thousands of coronaviruses. Most are harmless to humans, but occasionally a bat virus mutates and jumps to another animal, a civet, a pangolin, a raccoon dog, and then from that animal to humans. This has happened before. SARS in 2003 jumped from bats to civet cats to humans. MERS jumped from bats to camels to humans. Ebola, HIV, and countless other viruses all jumped from animals to humans. It's called zoonotic spillover, and it's a natural process that's been happening for millennia. In Wuhan, the early cases were clustered around the Huanan Seafood Wholesale Market. This market sold live animals, fish, chickens, snakes, rabbits, and possibly wildlife like raccoon dogs, civets, and bamboo rats. It was a perfect place for a virus to jump from animals to humans. Vendors handled animals all day: blood, guts, close contact. If an infected animal was sold at the market, a vendor could get infected. Then that vendor spreads it to customers, family members, and others. Within weeks, the virus is spreading through Wuhan. This is the natural origin theory. It's plausible, it's happened before, and many scientists believe it's what happened with COVID-19. But there's a problem. No one has found the animal that transmitted the virus to humans. No one has found SARS-CoV-2 in any animal at the Huanan market, and the closest known virus to SARS-CoV-2, a bat coronavirus called rat-T13, is only 96% similar. That 4% difference represents years of evolution. So where did the virus evolve? In bats? In another animal? Where? These unanswered questions open the door to another theory: the lab leak theory. This is the idea that SARS-CoV-2 didn't jump naturally from animals to humans. Instead, it leaked from a laboratory in Wuhan that was studying coronaviruses. And there is such a lab, the Wuhan Institute of Virology, or WIV. It's one of the world's leading research centers for bat coronaviruses. Scientists there collect bat viruses from caves, study them, and conduct experiments to understand how they might infect humans. The Wuhan Institute of Virology is located just a few miles from the Huanan market. It houses a BSL-4 lab, the highest biosafety level, designed to handle the most dangerous pathogens. But it also has lower security BSL-2 and BSL-3 labs where much of the coronavirus research was conducted. The lab leak theory suggests that scientists at WIV were studying a bat coronavirus similar to SARS-CoV-2. Maybe they collected it from a cave. Maybe they were conducting experiments to see how it could infect human cells, a process called gain-of-function research. And somehow, through an accident, a lab worker got infected. Improper disposal of waste, a breach in safety protocols, the virus escaped the lab and began spreading in Wuhan. This theory was initially dismissed as a conspiracy theory, but over time, as more information came to light, it gained credibility. U.S. intelligence agencies investigated. Scientists who initially dismissed it reconsidered. And by 2021, even President Joe Biden ordered intelligence agencies to look into the possibility. The problem: China won't cooperate. The Chinese government refuses to allow independent investigations of the Wuhan Institute of Virology. They deny the lab leak theory. They insist the virus came from nature, but their lack of transparency makes people suspicious. So which theory is correct? We don't know, and that's the frustrating truth. More than 4 years after the pandemic began, we still don't know where COVID-19 came from. Let's go back to the beginning. December 2019, Wuhan. The first known COVID-19 cases appear. The exact timeline is murky, but here's what we know. In early December 2019, several people in Wuhan developed pneumonia-like symptoms. Some are connected to the Huanan Seafood Market. Others have no connection to the market at all. On December 8, 2019, a man later identified as one of the first known cases becomes ill. He has no connection to the Huanan market. This is important. If the outbreak started at the market, why are some of the earliest cases unconnected to it? By mid-December, more cases appear. Doctors are confused. The symptoms look like pneumonia, but the cause is unknown. Tests for flu, bacterial pneumonia, and other common respiratory infections come back negative. On December 27, 2019, a doctor at a Wuhan hospital sends samples from a patient with unknown pneumonia to a private lab for testing. The lab sequences the virus's genome and discovers it's a novel coronavirus, never seen before in humans. They alert the doctor. On December 30, 2019, Wenliang sends his now famous warning message. That same day, the Wuhan Municipal Health Commission issues an internal notice about cases of pneumonia of unknown cause, but they downplay it. They say there's no evidence of human-to-human transmission. That's a lie, or at the very least, a dangerous underestimation. The virus is already spreading person to person. On December 31, 2019, China notifies the World Health Organization about a cluster of pneumonia cases in Wuhan, but they still claim there's no clear evidence of human-to-human transmission. On January 1, 2020, Chinese authorities close the Huanan Seafood Market. They disinfect it. They remove animals. This is good for public health but terrible for investigators. By cleaning the market so quickly, they destroy potential evidence. Scientists will never be able to sample the animals or the environment to find the source of the virus. On January 3, 2020, Li Wenliang is reprimanded by police for spreading rumors. On January 9, 2020, China announces they've identified the virus, a novel coronavirus. They share the genetic sequence with the world. This is crucial. It allows scientists globally to start developing tests and vaccines. But China continues to downplay the severity. They insist there's no evidence of human-to-human transmission. They say the outbreak is under control. On January 11, 2020, China reports its first death, a 61-year-old man who shopped at the Huanan Market. On January 13, 2020, Thailand reports the first case outside China, a woman who traveled from Wuhan. On January 20, 2020, Dr. Zhang Nanshen, a prominent Chinese respiratory expert, finally admits on state television that the virus is spreading person to person. This is nearly 3 weeks after the first known cases, 3 weeks of downplaying, 3 weeks of lost time. By this point, millions of people have traveled in and out of Wuhan. The Lunar New Year is approaching, the biggest travel season in China. Hundreds of millions of people will travel across the country and internationally. The virus is already spreading beyond Wuhan, beyond China. On January 23, 2020, China takes drastic action. They lock down Wuhan. 11 million people are confined to their homes. No one can leave the city. It's an unprecedented move. But it's too late. The virus is already in dozens of countries. Within weeks, COVID-19 is a global pandemic, and the world starts asking, how did this happen? Where did this virus come from? And why didn't China act sooner? The natural origin theory points to the Huanan Seafood Market as the likely epicenter. Here's the evidence. Early cases were clustered around the market. Of the first 41 hospitalized patients, 27 had direct exposure to the market. Environmental samples taken from the market tested positive for SARS-CoV-2. This suggests the virus was present there. The market sold live animals, including wildlife. Vendors handled animals in cramped, unsanitary conditions. Blood, fluids, and waste mixed. This is the perfect environment for a virus to jump from animals to humans. A 2022 study published in Science analyzed genetic data and found 2 lineages of the virus, suggesting the virus jumped from animals to humans twice at the market. This would be strong evidence for natural origin. Coronaviruses naturally jump from animals to humans. It's happened before. SARS, MERS, and other viruses all originated this way. COVID-19 fits the pattern. But there are problems with this theory. No infected animal has been found. Scientists tested thousands of animals in the Wuhan area. Bats, pangolins, wildlife, and markets. None tested positive for SARS-CoV-2, or a closely related virus. The closest known relative to SARS-CoV-2 is rat T13, a bat coronavirus collected by scientists from the Wuhan Institute of Virology in 2013, in a mine in Yunnan province, about 1,000 miles from Wuhan. Rat T13 is 96% similar to SARS-CoV-2, but that 4% difference represents decades of evolutionary time, so there's a missing link. Where did the virus evolve from rat T13 to SARS-CoV-2? In bats. In another animal. Where? Some early cases had no connection to the market. If the outbreak started at the market, why did some of the earliest patients never go there? China closed and disinfected the market within days. This destroyed evidence. Scientists can't go back and sample animals or the environment. The crime scene was cleaned before investigators could properly examine it. These gaps in the natural origin theory left room for the lab leak hypothesis. The lab leak theory focuses on the Wuhan Institute of Virology. Here's the case. The Wuhan Institute of Virology is one of the world's top labs studying bat coronaviruses. Scientists there collect bat viruses from caves across China. They study how these viruses infect cells. They conduct experiments to predict which viruses might pose a pandemic risk. The lab is located just a few miles from the Huanan Market and the early cluster of cases. Coincidence? In 2015, scientists at WIV, in collaboration with American researchers, published a paper describing gain-of-function experiments. They took a bat coronavirus and modified it to infect human cells. The goal was to study pandemic potential, but critics say this research is dangerous. If a modified virus escapes, it could start a pandemic. Rat G13, the closest known relative to SARS-CoV-2, was collected by WIV scientists. The lab had the virus in its collection. They were studying it. Could SARS-CoV-2 have evolved from rat G13 in the lab, either naturally or through experiments? In 2012, 6 miners in Yunnan province entered a cave to clear bat guano. They fell ill with severe pneumonia. 3 died. WIV scientists investigated. They collected bat viruses from the cave, including rat G13. Some researchers believe SARS-CoV-2 might have originated in that cave. Reports suggest safety protocols at WIV were lax. A 2018 U.S. State Department cable warned that the lab had inadequate safety training and protocols. Lab leaks have happened before. In 2004, SARS leaked from a lab in Beijing, infecting multiple people. China refuses to allow independent investigation of WIV. They've blocked international investigators. They've removed virus databases from public access. Why hide if there's nothing to hide? U.S. intelligence reports suggest 3 WIV researchers fell ill in November 2019, weeks before the official outbreak with symptoms consistent with COVID-19. China denies this, but if true, it's smoking gun evidence of a lab leak. Dr. Shi Zhengli, the head of bat coronavirus research at WIV, is nicknamed Batwoman. She's spent years collecting bat viruses. She knows more about them than almost anyone. After COVID-19 emerged, she reportedly said she worried it came from her lab. She checked her records. She says it didn't. But can we trust her? The lab leak theory gained traction in 2021 when a group of scientists published an open letter calling for a full investigation. Even Dr. Anthony Fauci, who initially dismissed the lab leak theory, admitted it couldn't be ruled out. But the lab leak theory has problems too. There's no direct evidence, no leaked documents, no whistleblowers, no infected lab worker identified. It's all circumstantial. SARS-CoV-2 doesn't show signs of genetic manipulation. If scientists engineered it, there would likely be traces in the genome. Experts say the virus looks natural. Gain-of-function research doesn't necessarily mean creating a pandemic virus. Much of it is theoretical or involves viruses that can't spread efficiently in humans. The 3 sick researchers in November 2019 is unconfirmed. U.S. intelligence says it's not conclusive. They might have had the flu. Lab leaks are rare. While they've happened, the vast majority of pandemics in history have been natural.
So which is it?
Natural or lab leak? The truth is, we don't know, and we may never know. Here's what U.S. intelligence agencies concluded in 2021 after a 90-day investigation ordered by President Biden. They couldn't reach a consensus. The agencies were split. Some leaned toward natural origin, others leaned toward lab leak. None had high confidence in either theory. The conclusion: more information is needed, and China isn't providing it. In 2023, the U.S. Department of Energy released a report suggesting with low confidence that a lab leak was the most likely origin, but other agencies disagreed. The intelligence community remains divided. The World Health Organization sent teams to Wuhan in 2021 to investigate, but their access was limited. They couldn't freely investigate the lab or interview key personnel. Their report said a lab leak was extremely unlikely, but many scientists criticized the report as incomplete and biased. China's response has been defensive and opaque. They've blocked investigations. They've pushed alternative theories, suggesting the virus came from the U.S., from frozen food imports, from anywhere but China. They've censored domestic discussions. They've punished whistleblowers. Why? If the virus came from nature, why not cooperate fully and prove it? The lack of transparency fuels suspicion. Wenliang's story is central to the COVID-19 origin mystery because it reveals how China handled the early outbreak. He was silenced for telling the truth. He was punished for trying to warn people, and he died because of the virus he tried to stop. After Li's death on February 7, 2020, millions of Chinese citizens mourned online. They called him a hero. They criticized the government for silencing him. The hashtag "We Want Freedom of Speech" trended on Chinese social media before censors deleted it. The Chinese government, facing backlash, eventually cleared Li's name. They acknowledged he was right. They called him a martyr. But the damage was done. Weeks were lost. The virus spread, and the world paid the price. Wenliang's story is a reminder of what happens when governments prioritize control over transparency. If China had acted on his warnings immediately, if they'd been honest about human-to-human transmission, if they'd allowed open discussion and investigation, maybe the pandemic could have been contained. But they didn't, and millions died. 4 years later, we still don't know where COVID-19 came from. The natural origin theory is plausible, but lacks the smoking gun, the infected animal. The lab leak theory is possible, but lacks direct evidence. What we do know is this: the virus emerged in Wuhan. The early response was marked by cover-ups and delays. China silenced whistleblowers. They destroyed evidence. They blocked investigations. And because of that, the truth may never be known. The origin of COVID-19 matters. It's not just academic. If the virus came from nature, we need to regulate wildlife markets better. We need to monitor bat populations. We need to prevent future spillovers. If the virus came from a lab, we need to overhaul lab safety protocols globally. We need to reconsider gain-of-function research. We need accountability. But without knowing the truth, We can't fix the problem, and the next pandemic could be worse. December 30th, 2019, Wenliang sends a warning. 7 confirmed cases of SARS. He's reprimanded, silenced, and weeks later, dead. December 2019 to March 2020. A virus spreads from Wuhan to the world. Within months, millions are infected. Hundreds of thousands are dead. Economies collapse. Society shuts down. 2020 to 2025. Over 7 million people die from COVID-19. Maybe more. The true toll may never be known. And after all of it, all the deaths, all the suffering, all the investigations, we still don't know where it came from. Was it natural? A bat virus that jumped to humans at a market? Or was it a lab accident? A virus that leaked from the Wuhan Institute of Virology? We don't know. China won't tell us. They've hidden evidence. They've blocked investigators. They've silenced whistleblowers. The origin of COVID-19 remains one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in modern history, and unless China allows full transparency, it may stay that way forever. Wenliang tried to warn the world. He was silenced. He died, and his warning became a symbol of what happens when truth is suppressed. The virus that killed him, and millions of others, came from somewhere. We just don't know where, and that's terrifying, because if we don't know where it came from, how do we stop the next one? Patient Zero, the Wuhan mystery, the lab leak theory, the cover-up, the 7 million dead, and the truth we may never know. COVID-19, the pandemic that changed the world, and the origin story that remains hidden in the shadows of Wuhan.